All right, so today um, we're going to be taking a deep dive
Okay.
into the world of software testing.
All right.
And more specifically, we're going to be focusing on two terms that people often get mixed up:
Okay.
smoke testing and sanity testing.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and you've provided us with some really interesting material on this.
Yeah, I'm happy to.
I'm really excited to dive in and see what we learn.
Yeah, I think it's going to be fascinating.
So building software,
Yeah.
it's not exactly like
I-
baking a cake.
Right.
It's more like constructing a skyscraper,
Yes, exactly.
a really, really complicated skyscraper.
Yeah, software builds involve compiling thousands or even millions of lines of code,
Yeah.
and they all have to work together perfectly.
Oh, wow.
So it is a really complex process.
Yeah. So before we even get to the testing part,
Right.
what exactly is a software build?
Well, it's essentially taking all those individual pieces of source code and transforming them into a program that you can actually run.
Okay, so it's like taking all the raw materials and actually building the skyscraper.
Exactly.
Okay, so the build is the moment that the code becomes a program that can actually run.
Exactly.
So then what?
Well, that's where smoke testing comes in.
Okay.
It's the initial check after a build to ensure that the most critical functions are actually working.
So like making sure the building structure is sound before you start adding all the fancy stuff.
Precisely. It's about stability and catching those major flaws early on.
Ah, so it's like a first responder team
Exactly.
arriving at the scene of what
Yeah.
an incident,
Uh-huh.
and they just want to make sure that,
Right.
there are no major problems.
Exactly. And one of the key things they look at is whether the application launches properly
Yeah.
and if the user interface is responsive.
That makes sense, because if the program won't even open,
Right.
or if the buttons don't respond, there's really no point in moving on to more complex tests.
Exactly. You've got to start with the basics.
Yeah, so you want to be sure that the basic framework is in place before you start,
Right.
testing all the bells and whistles.
Also,
So I'm curious, what are the real-world implications of skipping smoke tests?
okay. Well,
I mean, what's the worst that could happen?
imagine launching an e-commerce website without doing smoke testing.
Okay.
Users might be able to register and browse products,
Mm-hmm.
but what if the add to cart button doesn't work?
Oh, no.
Or the checkout process keeps failing?
That would be a disaster.
Exactly.
You'd have frustrated customers,
Yeah,
lost sales,
absolutely.
and it could really damage your reputation.
You got it. And the longer those critical flaws go undetected, the more expensive and time-consuming they become to fix.
So it's all about catching those showstoppers early on.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about smoke testing.
Right.
Where does sanity testing fit into all of this?
Well, sanity testing comes a bit later in the process.
Yeah.
Typically after specific bugs have been fixed or smaller updates have been made to the code.
Oh, okay.
It's less about ensuring overall stability and more about checking the rationality of those specific changes.
So if smoke testing is about making sure the foundation of our skyscraper is solid,
Yeah,
sanity testing is about making sure the elevator is going to the right floor.
exactly. It's about focusing on specific components rather than the entire system
Gotcha.
and ensuring that those recent changes make sense
Yeah.
and haven't broken anything else in the process.
Your source had a really interesting analogy about a calculator.
Oh, yeah.
Like if it says 2 + 2 = 5,
Yeah,
you're not going to
no point.
bother testing any of the other functions
Exactly.
because the fundamental logic is flawed.
Exactly.
Got to fix that first.
Absolutely.
So are sanity tests performed after every single little bug fix?
Not necessarily. It really depends on the complexity of the fix and the potential impact on other parts of the system.
Okay.
For minor isolated fixes, a sanity test might not be needed.
Right.
But if the fix is more involved or it touches on some critical functionality,
Yeah.
then a sanity test is a must.
It's all about assessing the risk versus reward.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got these two distinct types of testing.
Right.
Smoke tests for overall stability after a build, and then sanity tests for checking the rationality of specific changes.
Yeah.
But how do you know which one to use and when?
Well, there are some clear distinctions.
Okay.
And your source actually outlined them nicely in a table.
Oh, perfect. Let's take a look at that table and see what it reveals.
Okay.
So first up, we've got the goals.
Uh-huh.
Smoke testing is about confirming stability after a build, whereas sanity testing aims to confirm the rationality of specific changes.
Yes. They're both essential for creating robust software.
They're like two sides of the same coin.
Exactly. One is like checking the overall health of a patient,
Okay.
while the other is like running specific tests to address a particular concern.
Gotcha. So both are crucial.
Absolutely.
Okay. And who actually performs these tests?
Yeah.
Is it the same team for both?
It can vary depending on the organization,
Okay.
but generally developers or dedicated testers handle smoke tests, whereas sanity tests are usually performed by testers.
So it makes sense that developers would be heavily involved in smoke testing since they're the ones who built the software in the first place?
Exactly. They want to make sure that their build is fundamentally sound before passing it on
Yeah.
for further testing.
And then dedicated testers can come in with a fresh perspective for the sanity testing.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. And what about documentation?
Okay, so for documentation,
It seems like smoke testing involves documented procedures, whereas sanity testing is more ad hoc.
yeah, that's because smoke tests are often part of a formal build verification process.
Okay.
So documentation is crucial for consistency and traceability.
Mm-hmm.
Sanity tests, however, are more focused and targeted based on specific changes.
Wow.
So they may not require extensive documentation.
So it's like having a detailed blueprint for the entire building
Yes.
versus a quick sketch of the modifications made to a specific room.
A perfect analogy.
Okay, and finally, the table highlights the scope of testing. Smoke tests examine the entire system,
Yes.
whereas sanity tests focus on the specific components affected by the recent changes.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
about being comprehensive, but also targeted.
Okay, so smoke tests are like taking the elevator all the way up and down the skyscraper, checking every floor.
Yes.
And sanity tests are more like making sure the newly renovated lobby is functioning as intended.
Exactly. And the beauty of these testing methods is that they not only ensure the quality of the final product, but they also save valuable time and resources by identifying problems early on.
It's much easier to fix a crack in the foundation while it's still small than to deal with a major structural collapse later down the line.
Exactly.
Okay, so it seems like every step in the process
Yeah,
is designed to create the most stable and functional software possible.
absolutely.
But I'm curious, how does all this apply to me, the everyday user?
Okay.
I'm not building skyscrapers of code,
Right.
so why should I care about smoke and sanity testing?
Well, think about all the software you use on a daily basis. Your smartphone apps, your favorite websites, your computer programs. Behind every one of those applications is a team of developers and testers
Uh-huh.
working tirelessly to ensure a smooth and reliable user experience.
Okay.
And guess what? Smoke and sanity testing play a crucial role in that process.
Wow, so it's happening behind the scenes all the time.
It is.
And without those tests, the apps and programs I rely on might be buggy,
Yeah.
unreliable, or even completely unusable.
Exactly. So while you might not be writing the code yourself, understanding these testing concepts gives you a deeper appreciation for the complexity and effort involved in creating the technology we all depend on.
So it makes me see my everyday apps in a whole new light.
Exactly. And you know what's really interesting is that,
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground so far in our deep dive into smoke and sanity testing.
yeah, it's been pretty comprehensive.
And we've learned about these two distinct types of tests, each playing a vital role in software development.
Absolutely.
But I'm curious, are they always mutually exclusive?
Oh, that's a good question.
Or are there situations where both smoke and sanity tests might be performed on the same build?
Yeah, you're right to point out that it's not always black and white.
Okay.
Sometimes, depending on the specific needs and risks associated with a particular build, it might be necessary to perform both types of tests.
So it's not an either-or situation.
Right.
There's some nuance to it.
Exactly.
So in those cases where you're doing both, which one comes first?
Generally, the flow is to conduct smoke testing first, followed by sanity testing.
Okay.
You want to make sure the overall system is stable
Right.
and the core functions are working before diving into the specifics of a particular change.
It's like making sure the foundation of our skyscraper is solid before we start checking if the newly installed elevator is working properly.
Precisely.
And speaking of efficiency, your source mentions that there's a growing trend of combining smoke and sanity test cases
Right.
to expedite the testing process.
Exactly. It's all about finding that sweet spot between thoroughness and speed.
So instead of running two separate sets of tests, they're finding clever ways to integrate them,
Exact.
streamlining the whole process without compromising on quality.
You got it.
And this brings us to another point that we touched on earlier,
Yeah.
the role of automation in both smoke and sanity testing.
Yes. Automation is becoming increasingly important in software development.
I'm really fascinated by this idea
Yeah.
of automating these tests.
Mm.
It sounds incredibly efficient,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm having a hard time picturing how it actually works in practice.
Okay, well, imagine this. Every time a new build is created,
Okay.
a series of automated tests are triggered automatically.
Okay.
These tests could check things like whether the application launches,
Hmm.
whether key buttons respond, whether basic data input and retrieval functions are working, all those core functionalities we talked about earlier.
Wow, so you'd essentially have this robotic assistant
Right.
constantly checking for errors and ensuring that the software is working as intended.
Yeah.
And that would free up human testers to focus on the more complex aspects of testing.
That's right. Automation tools are revolutionizing software development, allowing teams to test more thoroughly and frequently, ultimately leading to higher quality software releases.
So it's like those testing procedures have become smarter and more efficient over time.
Absolutely.
And speaking of smarter testing, your source mentioned build verification tests,
Yes.
which are essentially smoke tests performed on a specific build,
Right.
and that these are becoming increasingly common in the industry.
Exactly.
You know, this reminds me of something I read recently about how some apps update almost daily.
Oh, yeah.
Is that potentially due to daily builds and smoke tests being run constantly
Yeah, got it.
to ensure that any issues are caught and addressed quickly.
This practice allows development teams to identify and fix bugs rapidly, resulting in a more stable and reliable user experience.
It's a whole different world behind the scenes.
It is.
I never realized how much effort goes into creating the seemingly simple apps we use every day.
A lot of work goes into it.
So we've talked about the what and the how of smoke and sanity testing.
Yeah.
But before we wrap things up, I'd love to get into the why.
Okay.
Why should our listener, who might not be a developer, care about all of this?
That's a crucial question. Think about it this way. Software is everywhere.
Okay.
It powers our phones, our cars, our homes, even our cities.
Right.
And with that pervasiveness comes a responsibility to ensure that the software we use is reliable, safe, and secure.
Right. Because a bug in a banking app could have serious financial consequences.
Absolutely.
Or a glitch in a self-driving car's navigation system could be downright dangerous.
You got it. So while you might not be writing the code yourself, understanding the principles of software testing, even at a basic level, helps you become a more informed and discerning user of technology.
It's like knowing the difference between a well-constructed building and one that's about to crumble.
Exactly.
You wouldn't want to live in a building that hasn't undergone rigorous safety inspections.
Right.
And you wouldn't want to use software that hasn't been thoroughly tested.
A perfect analogy. So whether you're evaluating a new app to download
Okay.
or simply trying to understand why a particular website isn't working as expected, knowing about these testing methods empowers you to make informed decisions about the technology you use
Yeah.
and interact with on a daily basis.
And that's a powerful thing.
It is.
It turns us from passive users into active participants in the world of technology.
Exactly.
We're not just blindly clicking buttons.
Right.
We're making conscious choices based on an understanding of how software is built and tested.
Precisely. And that awareness, that critical thinking is what ultimately drives progress and innovation in the tech world.
This has been really insightful.
Sure.
I feel like I'm seeing the software world with new eyes.
I'm glad to hear that.
So we've covered a lot of ground here,
We have.
from definitions and processes to automation, and even the broader implications of software testing.
Absolutely.
But before we wrap up, I'd love to get a bit more practical.
Okay.
Let's say our listener is developing a brand new app, maybe a social media platform or a productivity tool.
Uh-huh.
What advice would you give them about prioritizing functionalities in their smoke and sanity tests?
That's a fantastic way to bring this all together. Imagine you're building a social media app.
Okay.
What are the absolute core functionalities that need to work flawlessly for the app to be even remotely usable?
Well, first and foremost, users need to be able to register an account and log in without any issues.
Okay, good.
Then they'd need to be able to create and post content, whether it's text, images, or videos.
Right.
And of course, they need to be able to view and interact with content posted by other users.
Excellent. Those are all essential functionalities.
Yeah.
That would fall under smoke testing.
Right.
You'd want to make sure those basic actions are working seamlessly before even thinking about testing more advanced features like direct messaging or live streaming.
Right, because if those core functionalities are broken,
Yeah,
the app is essentially dead in the water.
exactly.
Yeah.
Now, let's say you've just added a new feature to your app, something like the ability to share images in posts.
Okay.
What would you prioritize in your sanity testing for this new feature?
For the image sharing feature, I'd want to make sure that users can successfully upload images from their devices,
Okay.
that the images display correctly in the feed,
Uh-huh.
and that there are no issues with different image formats or sizes.
Good.
I'd also want to check for potential security vulnerabilities.
Okay.
making sure that inappropriate or malicious content can't be uploaded and shared through the app.
Those are all excellent considerations. You're
Yeah.
thinking about both functionality and security,
Right.
which are both crucial aspects of software testing.
Now, to take it a step further, what might be the potential consequences of skipping these crucial smoke and sanity tests?
Hmm.
It seems like a lot of work, so I can see how some developers might be tempted to cut corners.
That's a slippery slope, and the consequences can be far-reaching. Imagine skipping smoke tests
Okay.
and releasing a buggy app that crashes frequently or has major functionality issues.
Oh,
Users would quickly become frustrated,
right.
leading to negative reviews on installs and ultimately a damaged reputation for the app and the developers.
It's like building a house without inspecting the foundation.
Exact.
It might look okay on the surface,
Right.
but sooner or later those cracks are going to show and the whole structure could come crumbling down.
Exactly. And skipping sanity tests could mean that seemingly minor changes end up having unintended consequences on other parts of the app.
Right.
This could create a cascade of bugs, making the app unreliable and frustrating to use.
It's like that old saying,
Yeah.
for want of a nail, the shoe was lost. For want of a shoe, the horse was lost.
Oh, yeah. I like that.
And for want of a horse, the rider was lost.
That's a good one.
One small oversight can lead to a chain reaction of problems.
Precisely. And that's why these seemingly simple testing concepts are so crucial in the software development world. They're not just about finding bugs.
Right.
They're about ensuring a smooth, efficient development process.
Yeah.
And ultimately delivering a high-quality product to users.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground in this part of our deep dive.
Yeah, we've talked about the interplay between smoke and sanity testing,
Yes.
the growing role of automation,
Right.
and the real-world implications of skipping these crucial tests.
Absolutely.
Mm.
We also walked through a hypothetical app development scenario,
We did.
highlighting the importance of prioritizing functionalities and considering the potential consequences of neglecting thorough testing.
Exactly.
This has been incredibly insightful. I feel like I'm starting to see the hidden world of software development in a whole new light.
And that's precisely the goal of our deep dive, to equip you, dear listener, with a deeper understanding of the technologies that shape our world.
But wait, there's more. Stay tuned for the final part of our deep dive into smoke and sanity testing, where we'll wrap up our exploration and leave you with some final thoughts to ponder. Okay, welcome back for the final part of our deep dive into smoke and sanity testing.
Yeah, it's been a really interesting discussion.
Yeah, we've explored so much.
We have?
From the basic definitions to the real-world implications of these testing methods.
Absolutely.
And we started by, demystifying those often confused terms.
Yeah.
Smoke testing and sanity testing.
Exactly.
Smoke testing, as we learned,
Yeah.
is like the initial health check after a software build.
It is. It's about ensuring the overall stability of the system
Right.
and catching those major flaws before they escalate.
So think of it as making sure the foundation of our skyscraper
Yeah,
is nice and strong and sturdy.
absolutely.
And then we moved on to sanity testing, which comes into play
Right.
after specific bug fixes or updates.
Yes. Sanity testing is all about checking the rationality of those changes, making sure they haven't introduced any unexpected side effects.
Right, so it's like making sure that the elevator
Yeah,
in our skyscraper is actually going to the right floors.
exactly.
And we discussed how automation is really transforming the world of software testing.
It is. It's making those processes faster and more efficient.
Yeah, and imagine a team of robotic assistants just constantly checking for errors
Yeah,
and ensuring the software is working as intended.
exactly.
It's pretty remarkable.
It is.
We also talked about the increasing prevalence of build verification tests,
Yeah.
those daily checks that are ensuring that the apps and websites that we use every day are working properly.
Exactly. And it's amazing to think about all that work
Right.
that goes on behind the scenes.
To deliver these seamless digital experiences that we often take for granted.
We really do.
And remember our hypothetical app development scenario.
I do.
We talked about prioritizing functionalities
Yeah.
in both smoke and sanity testing
Uh-huh.
and focusing on those core actions that are absolutely essential for the app to function.
Exactly. Because if those core functionalities are broken,
Right.
it's like having a skyscraper with a faulty foundation.
Right.
The whole thing is at risk.
The whole thing's going to fall apart.
Absolutely.
And we explored the potential consequences
Yeah.
of skipping these crucial testing phases.
It's really not worth the risk.
Right. Releasing a buggy app
Mm-hmm.
can lead to frustrated users,
Right.
negative reviews,
Absolutely.
and a damaged reputation.
It can really hurt your brand.
Yeah. So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Right.
what are some of the key takeaways for our listener?
Well, for me, it's about recognizing that testing is an integral part of the software development lifecycle.
It's not just about finding bugs. It's about ensuring quality, stability, and efficiency.
Exactly, throughout the entire process.
Right. And smoke and sanity testing
Yeah,
are two essential pieces of that puzzle, each serving a distinct but equally important purpose.
absolutely.
Smoke testing confirms overall stability after a build,
Uh-huh.
while sanity testing ensures the rationality of specific changes.
You got it.
And remember, both types of testing can be performed manually or by using automation tools,
Right.
depending on the specific needs of the project.
Exactly.
And when you're planning your tests,
Yeah.
it's crucial to prioritize functionalities
Uh-huh.
based on their criticality
Right.
and the potential impact of changes.
You don't want to test everything at once.
Yeah.
Focus on those core actions that are essential
Right.
for the software to function.
And finally,
Yeah.
never underestimate the importance of thorough testing.
Never.
Skipping those crucial steps can have really serious consequences, leading to buggy software,
Right.
frustrated users,
Mm-hmm.
and ultimately a damaged reputation.
Exactly.
So we've come to the end of our deep dive
Right.
into smoke and sanity testing.
It's been a great journey.
Yeah, and we hope you've enjoyed this journey
I hope so too.
and gained some valuable insights into the world of software development.
Absolutely. Whether you're a seasoned developer,
Yeah,
a tech enthusiast, or just someone who uses software every day,
right.
understanding these testing concepts can give you a deeper appreciation for the technology we all rely on.
It's about becoming a more informed and discerning user of technology,
Exactly.
recognizing the importance of quality and reliability in the software that we choose to use.
Absolutely.
So keep exploring,
Keep learning.
keep learning, and never stop questioning.
That's right.
The world of technology is constantly evolving, and there's always something new to discover.
Always.
So thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time,
See you then.
happy testing.